Podcast Answer Man, episode number 334.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference.
This is GSPN.TV.
Join the community.
Hi, everybody. This is Captain Jeff from the Airline Pilot Guy podcast. Everything I know about podcasting, I learned from Cliff Ravenscraft, the Podcast Answer Man. Now, I may be a captain for a major U.S. legacy airline, but Cliff is the captain. No, Cliff is the chief pilot of podcasting. So sit back and relax. Tray tables and seat backs in their upright and locked positions. Podcast Answer Man is cleared for takeoff.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and this, my friends, is the podcast about podcasting, helping you take your show to the next level. It doesn't matter if you're a brand new podcaster, if you have been podcasting for many years, or you haven't quite yet recorded that first episode. There's something we can all do to take our show, and of course everything else we do in life, to the next level. Well, my friends, I am so excited about today's show, and I can already tell you it's going to be at a minimum 1 hour and 11 minutes in length, and that's because I'm re-recording the introduction to this episode because I have a very special guest today. My wife, Stephanie Ravenscraft, is on this episode of Podcast Answer Man. You're going to hear a little bit more about that in just a few moments when I bring her on live. But before, and by the way, today we are going to be talking about 5 tips for getting your spouse on board with your entrepreneurial journey. So many wonderful things we shared, and I can't wait to play that for you. Before I do, I want to make just a couple of announcements really fast. And first, I'm going to tell you that Skype has announced back on November 6th, they did back down on their decision to stop supporting their desktop API. Basically, a couple episodes ago, I told you that the folks over at Pamela, the software recording solution for the Windows PC, they had announced that Skype was shutting down this API, the desktop API, and their recording software would no longer function after December. And they had mentioned that this was going to affect pretty much every recording software out there. I since came back and told you that Call Recorder over at Ecamm, they said their software was going to continue to work. And, well, we don't have to worry about that anymore. Skype reported previously, we shared that we would retire the desktop API later this year. However, I'm happy to share that we will be extending support for 2 of the most widely used features: call recording and compatibility with hardware devices. So call recording is going to continue to be supported in any software that currently works, should work beyond the end of this year. So I just wanted to give you guys that update. I meant to give it to you last week, but just had so many other things on my mind and tempted to just hold off until next week to tell you, but I really know that some of you are freaking out about the December deadline to find a solution, and now you no longer have any need to fear the end of the year because Skype will continue to support their desktop API for recording calls. So feel free to continue to use that Pamela software, which is great, by the way, because my second announcement that I want to make for you is to tell you that my Podcaster's Guide to Recording Co-Hosts, Guests, and Podcast Interviews. This is a tutorial that I had been wanting to put together for years. I finally recorded it 2 sessions back of my Podcasting A to Z course. 2 different sessions had the privilege of going through this tutorial, and they have loved it. And I've been meaning to put it on my website for sale. And I get so many questions about how do I do this and what should I do? What equipment do I need if I want to do record into this computer versus if I decide to do it like hardware with Mix Minus like you do. All of that stuff is answered in my Podcaster's Guide to Recording Co-Hosts, Guests, and Podcast Interviews. It is a tutorial that is now finally available for sale on my website. All you need to do is go to podcastanswerman.com/products or go to podcastanswerman.com and click products up in the nav bar, and you'll see a list of all my tutorials, and you'll see that there. The only other thing that I just want to say is that my final podcasting A to Z course for 2013 is coming up starting this coming Monday, November 18th. I already have 23 students signed up. Usually I consider a class full when I have 20 students, but I do have room for a couple more. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and play this promo, and then we'll get right into the conversation with my lovely wife.
Are you thinking of launching your own podcast and don't know where to start?
You could have your own high-quality podcast online in just under 4 weeks, even if you have absolutely no technical knowledge about how podcasting works.
Intrigued?
Since 2006, Cliff Ravenscraft, the podcast answer man, has trained thousands of people on how to launch a successful podcast. Cliff has coached top-ranked podcasters such as Pat Flynn, Michael Hyatt, Michael Stelzner, Dan Miller, John Lee Dumas, and the list goes on.
Podcasting A to Z is a 4-week group training course that leads you step by step through the setup of your very own podcast. Not just the technical side, but also the mindset that goes into creating a successful show as well. One thing is certain. At the end of 4 weeks, you will have experienced one of the best investments you can make in taking your message to the next level.
To learn more details about the course, head to podcastinga2z.com. Podcastinga2z.com.
And well, my friends, it is that time. Stephanie, I cannot believe this is your first visit to the Podcast Answer Man, like in the studio.
You've never invited me before.
I know. I feel so bad. You know, here's the deal. I feel like, there's a part of me that now wanted to put this off for a very long time because it was my idea to invite you as a guest on Podcast Answer Man several months ago.
Right.
And Michael Hyatt beat me to it. He brought Gail onto his podcast. And then I'm like, I can't bring Stephanie in now because, well, if I bring Stephanie in now, everybody will think I'm doing it because Michael did it.
Yeah, I know.
But this was something that I had planned on doing quite some time ago. I did not necessarily want to wait 334 episodes for it to happen. Now, the reality is, though, is you have been on Podcast Answer Me on before.
I have, because you released our a talk we did for the No More Mondays cruise, right?
Yep.
Is that the only time?
I think so. It may be the only time.
Well, it's the only time I've spoken with you, so.
I'm not sure if I put out your episode or a recording of the talk that you gave solo.
Yeah, I don't think it did. I don't know.
But I do know that the talk that you and I gave, telling our story of how we went from podcasting as a hobby about the TV show Lost and how it turned into our full-time career. We did that together. It was the most accurate account, finally, because my wife is the factual person. She's the fact keeper in our home.
Thank you.
And she always tells me when I'm inaccurately giving you false dates. It's like, wait a second. No, this definitely happened before this.
It did. I am good at that. I'm also the missing object finder in our house. Has nothing to do with that, but those seem to be like the two things that I'm good at.
Oh, okay.
I just thought I should bring that up as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So,
maybe what it is that I find those missing dates that you leave out.
Exactly. So anyway, you have been here before, but I am honored to have you here today. And I have no doubt.
Never been here live before.
You've never been here live before. And I have a fear that we may have this overwhelming demand for people saying, hey, hello, we want the Podcast Answer Woman on the show.
Well, I'm really good at saying no to people. And since this is my normal Thursday nap time, I would be really good at saying no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, anyway, thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And the first thing that I wrote into the show notes that are already pre-written for this is that one of the reasons I wanted you here on Podcast Answer Man is because last week I told everybody we went to the platform conference and we were shocked at the number of people who actually had no idea that you had podcasts. And well, first of all, they didn't know you had a podcast. Some people suggested, "What? So when are you going to start your podcast?"
And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, do you got something in mind that I should be sharing? Because for me, and I had said this to someone else that said the same thing to me over the course of those 3 days, was that for me, podcasting is a natural extension of our family now. Mm-hmm. Our youngest daughter, who's 8 years old, does not know a time without podcasting because she was 8 months old when we started the Lost podcast. So while I get that, you know, when I'm talking to people and people say, so what do you guys do? And my first question is always, do you know what a podcast is? Because there are so many people who still don't know what a podcast is, but to us, it's a natural way of life.
Right.
Like there is no other way to get your voice out there than to have a podcast. In my mind, that's how I think.
Exactly. Well, there is no better way.
Okay, but I'm not a very good writer, so to me, blogging is out.
Right.
In my mind, there is no other way than podcasting, and it's a natural extension of our family. So I was just like in shock when people were like, "So when are you going to start yours?" And I'm like, dude, I've been podcasting for as long as Cliff has.
Yeah, I have you up by 1 week.
That's right. You recorded like some week or something.
Yeah, the first episode was called Generally Speaking, and it was going to be a podcast that was my solo show. And people said, dude, we want you to talk about Lost, because the first episode was about Lost. And I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to talk about Lost every week, I'm going to bring the person who introduced me to Lost, and that was you. We'll get into that in just a moment. But, tell us a little bit about the podcasts, plural, not just one, but the podcasts that you have been a part of. Now, you don't have to name them all because you've been a part of a lot. We've done various multitudes of entertainment podcasts over the last 8 years. I've been a part of, I think, all of those. Yeah. From, Lost and Grey's Anatomy and Desperate Housewives. So many shows. And then we read Twilight and Hunger Games. So entertainment podcast, I'm really good about talking about what I know, and I know TV. Stephanie does know TV.
So, oh my goodness, way back when I started a podcast called The Full-Time Mom. Several episodes in, I brought in my best friend to tell a story, and that just became a thing. We sat down, and I think for like 2 years did The Full-Time Mom together, just talking about our kids and our family and our husbands and just us. That was it, and people loved it. Became a season in our life where it wasn't right to continue that together. I continued it on for myself for a while. So there was The Full-Time Mom. And now Sarah and I have come back together we started a new podcast probably 2.5 years ago, Authentic Life Radio. And we talk authentically about our lives and the lives of our family. And yeah.
So and of course, we also have a show that we do together that's not entertainment based, although it is very entertaining, I think, at times, which is Family from the Heart. And that is a show that we've been doing for 5 years now.
I think so.
Maybe 5.5 years now.
Which is Family from the Heart. And we talk authentically. I don't know how to not be authentic.
Right.
Like, I think that that's something that people don't really know about me. I don't know how to not be real and just say, this is who I am. You either like me or you don't.
Yeah.
And so very real, share our successes and our failures as a family and as a husband and wife and what's going on in our life. And that's found there. And it still continues today.
It does. In fact, we have an episode later today.
Yes, directly after lunch, which is good because I'm hungry.
It'll be good. Anyway, so Stephanie has been very much involved from the beginning. And the thing is I know for a fact I've never hidden the fact. Now, I don't talk about our story in every episode of Podcast Answer Man. And I don't talk about our story in all my tutorials that I do. And the majority of the people
because it doesn't belong in all of those places.
Exactly. And so a majority of the people who find Podcast Answer Man find us as a result of a referral or because of the Learn How to Podcast tutorial and all this other stuff. And it's very technical and stuff like that. It helps you get what you need and stuff. And they usually start with the most recent episodes and maybe go back and listen to, 10, 20, 30 episodes. But not everybody goes to the About page and watches the video that I did at Blog World 2011, where I actually told our story. It's a 1 hour video of me telling telling our story.
You can say it. Go ahead. Say it. Say it's me telling my story. Go ahead. Say it.
It's me telling our story. And because it is our story.
Right.
And that's why I want you on the show. It's like, Stephanie has to come here and tell you guys that, you have to understand. And it's so interesting of the saying, because it's become even more meaningful to us now. But behind every great man, there is a great woman. And I wanted to bring this great woman and introduce her to you guys so that you can understand just how blessed I am and how much she is a part of everything that you hear going on. I mean, you hear about these successful podcasting A to Z courses. I mean, my business today, back in 2011, she stood by me when we only made $11,000.
That was 2000. Was that 11?
I'm sorry, 2008. 2008.
I was going to say, that's just 2 years ago.
No, it was 2008. We only made $11,000 in personal income. But today our business routinely makes between $20,000 to $50,000 a month. And none of this would be possible, although you don't necessarily hear her name or see her face in the videos and all this other stuff, but none of it would be possible if it weren't for Stephanie. And so I wanted her to come here and get the recognition she deserves.
Well, thanks.
And also, I wanted and to give you a little intro. And by the way, those podcasts that we told you about, we have a network. It's called the Generally Speaking Production Network. You may have recognized at the beginning, it actually says this in front of all of our shows.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference.
This is GSPN.TV.
Join the community.
That's right, GSPN.TV. And together, my wife and I have created a total of 31 podcasts. And between the two of us, there are over 3,200 podcast episodes. And we now...
Do you know how painful it is for me when people are introducing you and they say that he's produced 3,100 podcasts? And I'm like, no, he didn't. Not by himself. Yeah, no, I'm not...
Stephanie's been a part of a lot of those episodes, and in that 3,200 episodes, I guess you could take the ones where it's you and Sarah in Authentic Life Radio and or Full Time Mom,
or me by myself,
or you by yourself in those shows, and those are included there. So okay, just over 3,000. You're right. Bring me down. Bring the fact checker in.
Way to cut you down. I'm sorry. Somebody had to do it.
That's all right. I just added 30 new episodes of Pursuing a Balanced Life. So
you're good.
I'll work myself up there, babe.
Well, I'm sure you will. And I'm sure you will.
So if you guys want to check out the different shows that Stephanie and I have, go to gspn.tv/shows, and you'll see an entire list of the shows that we have currently and the ones that we have in the archives that you can check out if you're interested. Now, today, eventually, I want to get to this thing where we're going to talk about 5 tips to getting your spouse on the same page with your entrepreneurial journey. This, for me, I deal with, I actually started out as a podcast consultant, and then I realized that it's not just consulting on the technical stuff, but becoming a coach on how to connect with your audience and how to do this. And as I'm building a business about all these different things, I realized that now I'm not just a podcast consultant and coach, but now I'm also a business coach and a life coach. And that's like a natural progression of where things seem to be going for me personally and in this business. And I really enjoy that. And the one thing that I consistently get over and over again is the number of people who find themselves dissatisfied with their day jobs, and they resonate with me and my story, our story, but they resonate with what they know of my story, of a guy who had this hobby and found the passion for something he loves, started doing it as a hobby, and built it into a really successful full-time income. And they're like, man, I love that. And they have a great idea. Some of them have a great idea. They have a very intentional focus. They have wonderful talent for what they're doing. The only thing is like me, the only life they've ever known is the life of an employee. They have no business acumen or anything like that as far as what it takes to run a business, but they're willing to learn. They're willing to make it. And they've actually been dabbling in this side project for a little while and putting countless number of hours. So you know that the investment is there. Their heart is there. But there are those out there, Stephanie, who tell me that their greatest struggle is the fact that their wife just doesn't get it. The wife is just not on the same page with them. And they're like, how does that happen? How do you do this? It's like, and my number one recommendation, if your wife isn't on board, don't do it. There's only one person. I do know one person whose wife was not on board. And I've heard this person's story. He's extremely successful today, but he's no longer married to the person that was his wife when he made the decision to pursue this. That's his own personal decision. So my suggestion is, if you want to remain married, then don't pursue something on the side without the support of your spouse. And obviously we realize that, and this is something that Michael Hyatt and Gail Hyatt made clear on their show when they did their whole their gifts that you can give to your supporting spouse and stuff like that. That it's not just the men who are entrepreneurs or have this journey that they want to go on, that it could be reversed. It could be the wife who has this thing on the side, and the husband is the one who's apprehensive and doesn't get it. Understand that we're going to speak from our experience, right, and you can just make that jump, as you see fit. So I'm not going to go out of my way to say it could be this. Mm-hmm. We're going to say, I'm going to be very sexist and say it's the husband, and we're going to talk about the supporting wife, although we may actually say spouse.
Okay.
All right. Just because that's our journey and that's who we are.
That's fine.
Okay. So with that being said, Stephanie, mm-hmm, let me look at the time here. We're doing good. I'd love to ask you, what is it first and foremost that made you decide to get involved in, quote unquote, this crazy idea when I came to you and said, hey, do you want to podcast with me? Can you remember that day and what I actually even said to invite you?
I don't remember what you said, other than it was something you wanted to do. It was something you were interested in. And there was this husband and wife from Hawaii, and they were doing this Lost podcast, and we could do that. And I laughed at you, I think. And I'm not kidding. But I had just come off of this Bible study through our church, and I do not remember what it was called. I'll have to do some research to find out. But the study that we had just finished was about investing in something that your husband is interested in, investing in a hobby that you can do to spend more time with your spouse. What is it that they are really into that you could probably play along with to have that more quality time or that more one-on-one time? And so I'm pretty sure I told you no first, and came back and said, if I have to.
Yeah.
Probably not those exact words, but I can tell you that my attitude was because Jesus told me to, not because Stephanie wanted to. Very much.
I as you're saying this, I don't remember you saying no at first. Okay. And then coming back. But now that you say it, that is starting to, yeah, I am recollecting that. So when you read this Bible study that said, support, if you really wanted to have a deeper connection in some areas, involve yourself in some of his hobbies or one of his hobbies. At the time when you read that, do you remember? Because obviously
you didn't have any hobbies. You worked all the time. We hadn't even started podcasting yet. I mean, it may have even been a few months before, or we had just finished up for that fall season, and you came to me in December. But so it wasn't like I was actively in that Bible study at that moment, but it's something that it was fresh in my mind. I had just come out of it, and
it had made an impact.
And it made an impact. And at the time when I read it, you didn't have any hobbies because you worked all the time.
Right.
I mean, we didn't do anything outside of working, and then you wanted to start this, and I was like, whatever. Nobody's gonna listen. Like what? Our parents? I mean, really? God love them. They still don't know what it is. Not true. My parents listen, but your parents listen, but they always call it the wrong things, and I think it's hilarious.
My mom's like, you've got to hire me. I can do one of those iPod things.
I know. It's so funny when she gets the terminology all mixed up. I absolutely love it. But so then you came and you asked me if I wanted to start this podcast, and we could do it about Lost and, all these things. And you talked about Ryan and Jen, who were already doing a Lost podcast. And I think you actually wanted me to listen to an episode of theirs, but I don't know that I ever did.
I think you did. I made you sit down with me on the couch.
Not an entire episode.
It wasn't an entire episode. It was just... Yeah. I wanted you to hear what it sounded like and to stuff like that. And I remember having it on the laptop. We sat on the couch. Okay. It was on our Oriental little coffee table. Yeah. And I hit play and I said, here, listen to this. And I think I may have got your attention for about 7 minutes.
Yeah, you really didn't keep my attention very long. And I have to tell you, I've been a podcast content creator for 8 years. I just started listening to podcasts like a month and a half ago.
She's not kidding you
and
guys.
I'm not kidding. It's still very... foreign to me to listen to a podcast. But so I said yes, but I wasn't really comfortable. One thing that a lot of people don't know about me, I'm not comfortable with my own voice. I cannot stand to hear my voice back. And so the thought that people would want to listen to me talk was like, really? I don't think so. But we invited our neighbor, who was also a Lost fan, to record with us. And we did that for quite a while.
Yep.
Quite a while. And then some things in her life changed. They had a new baby. And so she stepped aside and it became just the two of us. And once I got you to stop editing me, things went fine.
I did. I unfortunately edited Stephanie a great deal.
And scripted.
And scripted her and stuff like that.
And when I went off script, that's when he would edit me.
Anything that she said that was not on the script, I did edit.
I love to tell people now, if you go back and listen to those early days of the Lost podcast, and it's like all Cliff or all Cliff and Rachel, I was really opinionated that night.
A little.
Because I only hit the cutting room floor. That's it. You might hear my name in the introduction, and then I didn't say another word the whole episode.
Pretty much. I think there was only 2 episodes like that.
Right, I know.
But yeah, it was crazy. Of course, today I try not to do any editing. Right. I leave in the I leave in everything. Yeah. We are who we are. And I
keep waiting to get an email from someone that says, "Oh my goodness, I just heard one of those episodes."
Yeah. It's like, where's Stephanie?
You weren't kidding, were you?
She was at the beginning. I heard her say she was there. And she says goodbye at the end.
Yep. So it was, but so that's why I started podcasting with you. It was really just to invest in you, to invest in our relationship.
Right.
And make it something other than parenting and the exhaustion that we had 3 young kids at the time, and 2 preschoolers and an infant. So to have something that we could do together that didn't include cleaning up a spill or changing a diaper or,
Right.
So that's why I started podcasting.
So that's how you got involved. Now, the thing is this was still just a hobby for me, but you said before that, well, I didn't have hobbies before. Before I just worked around the clock, and I did. I was extremely successful as an insurance agent. I made lots of money.
Things would come and go. At that point, we had been married for 7 years, I guess, right?
I don't know.
Anyway, it all runs together. Long time.
Hold on, I'll do math here.
It's a long
with my calculator.
Time.
I keep a calculator next to my microphone.
Yeah.
Just for
2005 minus 96 minus 1996. So
2005 minus 1996.
There you go.
9 years.
9 years. So we'd been married 9 years at the time, and you'd had a lot of things come and go. You would do you remember
my bass guitar?
You remember the bass guitar
Yep.
and the amp that took up space in the living room for a while?
The thing is it was totally worth it. Megan still remembers the Megan Pooh song.
Yes, I know, and hates it, by the way. So I'm just
she has fond memories of that song. She does hate it, but she has fond memories.
She does. So there was the bass guitar. There was a wave radio, and I mean all of these, and it's funny because if you look back, shortwave radio, but if you look back over the things that you bought in the course of our life, it's almost as if everything was a step leading up to December of 2005.
Hands down.
Without a doubt. I mean, the sheer amount of money that we spent on computers and all of these little gadgets that it can do this, and you were bored with it in like 2 months. So when you told me you wanted to podcast, I'm like, this isn't going to last long. I can hang out for like the 2 months that this fad will last.
Exactly. Yeah. Cliff's going to do this.
I had been on this ride before.
Yep. I can ride this wave. No problem at all.
Right.
So that's exactly it. And of course, we had an experience that most people don't have in podcasting. You can if you want to, but it only if you want to manufacture it. We didn't. We fell into it. We happened to actually truly, honestly, and authentically be a fan of a television show that was popular with millions of viewers around the world. And as a result, we created a podcast and had thousands of subscribers right out of the gate, which neither of us had any idea was coming.
No. I still kind of like am in awe of the numbers of the people that listen to the Lost podcast.
Right.
I mean, it was truly remarkable and out of the ordinary.
Yeah. So the thing, Steph, is, I was working around the clock, and then all of a sudden I started working around the clock, not at the insurance office, but now I'm working around the clock. I'm working less at the insurance office and working around the clock with podcasting, staying up until 3 and 4 in the morning.
Answering emails and doing research and catching all these screen captures, and never saw you.
Never saw me.
Ever.
Except
for when we were watching Lost and recording the podcast that went with it.
What was that like for you at that time?
That was exhausting for me. It was exhausting for me I was quite literally a single parent during that time. It was a lot of running. It was a lot of late nights because we couldn't record until the kids were in bed. And just the day-to-day things that it takes for me as what I was then, a stay-at-home mom, to run a house and then to try to be involved in this, hobby with yours at night. It was exhausting for me, and I spent a better part of 4 years, I think, mentally asleep.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So how on earth, how do you go from the fact that you actually became there's a term in the podcasting community called a podcast widow.
I was a podcast widow. Before that, I was an insurance widow.
Right.
But I will say this. I came from a home where my dad worked around the clock.
Right.
My dad and two of the hardest working men I know in my life are my dad and my husband. I know no other life. So for the fact that you were working all the time, that's something that I was used to. Like it was very accustomed to me growing up that, dad wouldn't get home until 9 or 9:30. Sometimes later in the summer when it's light longer, and then a little earlier in the winter, unless he was working on a side job that kept him in the... So the fact that you were working really wasn't that big of a mental adjustment for me because it's something that I was already used to.
Right.
But then when you factor in the fact that I was doing all of the parenting with our kids completely alone, and what did you ask me? How did I get from that to what?
How did you get to that from, supporting me in this idea of going into this full time?
Well, we had done the round the clock thing for a couple of years. Was it like a year and a half?
It was
maybe?
A year and a half.
And I think I was just exhausted. And I know I said 4 years, but that continues into actually starting this business. Because again, then I was a business owner widow. I don't know what you want to call me. I mean, really, it takes a lot to start a business.
I'm an entrepreneurial widow
I
now.
was. So we did that round the clock thing for like a year and a half, and it was becoming more and more miserable in our house because you were miserable during the day. You were only happy in those hours between 7 p.m. and 4:30 a.m. But we couldn't see that because we were sleeping, and it got to be where it's got to be one or the other. You have got to make a decision. You've got to choose. You got to put your whole body in insurance, or you got to put your whole body here. Make up your mind. We can't do this anymore. I'm I'm very vocal when I can't take it anymore. And I had a year and a half I can't take it anymore. And that's probably not true because in the beginning it was fun.
Yeah.
So somewhere in the span of that year and a half, it became not fun.
Right.
And so for 1 week you quit podcasting.
I quit the wrong thing, didn't I?
And it was worse. It was worse than when it was before. It was miserable. And you had asked me this last week. And here's the thing, because for me, there was no thinking about it all the time, or really, I don't remember spending like hours and hours in prayer. It just became a moment when I knew. And I've always been told I have the gift of discernment. So if you want to say it was that, I don't know. But there just became a moment when I knew you need to do this full time.
Right.
We may sink, we may swim. I don't know. But we can't continue in the route that we're going. You're depressed. And I'm pretty sure it was coming into fall. So we were coming into that. I don't know if you've told your podcast Answer Man listeners that you struggle with that winter depression.
Yeah, I've been very open with that in the past. I talk about, it's like, hey, if you want to hear what things are going like, you can listen to the dark days of December 2000. What was it? 12? Yeah, that's what it was.
That was just last year. It was 2010.
Yeah, that's it. 2010. Dark days of 2010.
But so we were coming up on that time when I already know from being married to you for 10 years that you're going to go through this depression, and so it just became, it was just a moment. I didn't mull over the words as they were coming out of my mouth. I just said them, and there was no taking them back once they were out, because the light in your eyes was like, maybe we'll swim. I don't know. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to sink. And you're thinking, we can figure this out. And
those words were, you need to quit your job.
You need to quit your job.
You need to tell them tomorrow that you're doing podcasting full time.
That's what those words were.
And like 20 minutes after we had that conversation,
this whole thing started on a second of insanity.
Yeah.
That's it.
And 20 minutes later, we turned on the recorder and recorded an episode of Pursuing a Balanced Life. I think back then it was still called My Crazy Life.
Which was fitting.
Yeah, and we announced to everyone before I went into the office the next day. We announced to our entire community of people out there listening that I was going to quit my job and give them a 90-day notice the next day.
Right.
And I wanted to put that out because I figured once I've told everybody else, there's no turning back. I wasn't going to be able to change my mind in the morning. Anyway, so that's the fun stuff. That is how Stephanie's side of it is. And so I hope that's an encouragement. I want to actually share with folks, some tips on what they can do to get their spouse on board. And again, for me, I'm talking to men whose wives really aren't in tune with what's going on. It's like, wait a second, I married this guy who had this awesome job, that has this awesome future. And now all of a sudden he's getting bored with his job and he's playing around with his hobby on the side. And, what the heck is this all about? And they're thinking, and they're listening to podcasts like Dan Miller and Michael Hyatt and Cliff Ravenscraft and Pat Flynn and all these other people. And they're like, I think I can do this. I think I can do this. And their wife has no clue that they're spending hours and hours and hours every week being programmed with the possibility of actually doing fulfilling work that gives you meaning and purpose in life.
Right. And I think that one of the greatest things for me was that I was involved from the beginning. And even when it was difficult for me upstairs, our house is split in 2 levels. And so we have a very distinct upstairs is home and downstairs is work. And so even though things were difficult for me upstairs, downstairs, I was involved from the beginning. So I wasn't on that getting on the same page because I had always been involved.
Right. And so the first tip, and it's out of order, but I think it's probably good to go there. And these tips are things that Stephanie and I came up with while we were having this conversation in the car one day when we were thinking about one of the talks that she's going to give in front of a large conference of people. And the first one is include her or include your spouse.
Absolutely. They need to be a part. I was asked by a friend of ours when we were in Dallas, my wife is just not really getting it. What can I do? And I said, well, you need to include her. You need to, his podcast is a collection of interviews. Interview her. Get inside her head. I mean, find out what's going on. Bring her to the conferences with you so that she can, which was funny for me to say because Platform was the first conference I had attended with you in that bigger scale.
Yeah.
Like I'd been to pod camps, but that was the first, really conference I had attended with you. But I said, bring her on these trips with you. Let her be a part of what is going on. That is the first step. You can't have... And I felt funny saying it because I feel like on Family from the Heart, I'm always saying like, well, you're over here doing your thing and I'm over here doing my thing. And then once a week we come together and talk about it. And it makes it sound like that's the only time our paths cross. And while some weeks when the kids' schedule is really busy, that can actually happen, I'm very involved in what's going on inside this blue room right now. Even if I'm busy doing my thing and Cliff's busy doing his thing, I'm following him on Twitter. I'm following him on Facebook. I'm reading everything that he is, every little email that he sends out, I get attached on. If he ever sends you something from Basecamp, I get an attachment. I'm very involved in what's happening here. So I can be out there doing what the kids need me to be doing and still know what's going on here.
Yeah.
And so you have to have her be involved in what you're doing. It has to be a team effort because that's what marriage is.
Exactly. And that's the reality here. The reality is that when you and I got married, I believe honestly we were called to be one.
We were.
And that the two shall become one. And as far as I'm concerned, we are one entity. We're not just a team. We are one. And that is one of my favorite podcast episodes we ever did, or actually it was a series that we did on Family from the Heart, where we shared the 5 threats to marital oneness. Mm-hmm. And we got that from the marriage conference. Who was that? Family Life
Today?
Yeah, Weekend to Remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, I believe we are one. And that's the thing that it's like, if I know something, I want to share it with you. If I'm experiencing something, I want to share it with you. And that's why I do include you on a lot of copies on conversations that I'm having with people. If something's if I'm reading something in a book and it's changing the way I think about something, I want to have that conversation at lunch with you or in a podcast with you or wherever. It's like, wow, this is radically impacting the way that I view this part of my life. And I share that and you're like, yeah, okay, I see that. And mm-hmm. sometimes it just helps to bounce those things off with you. Going back, you said that you've always been on board, but I do want to tell you that I don't think I did this intentionally with how do I keep my wife on board or stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But this is just a natural part of me sharing my life with you and every part of my life with you. Back when we were doing this as a hobby and all of a sudden some money started to come in, there was a little bit of money coming in and we'll get into that in just a moment. But the reality is I started to have this thought, wouldn't it be great if I could do this full time? And I actually shared that. As soon as that thought came to my mind, I'm like, I'm going to share something with you, Stephanie. And I know this is never going to happen. But man, people ask that question, if money were no object, what would you do? I said, this is what I would do all day. I would podcast. I would interact with people online. I would take what I'm experiencing, and this is what I would do. If money were no object, this is what I would do. And I would also share that with my audience. And here, my audience, I'm surrounded by these people I've never heard. I've never really heard the word entrepreneur in my life except for, there was Entrepreneur magazine. And I always thought entrepreneur, that's Donald Trump, those crazy people,
Okay.
But all of a sudden now in my podcast, I have thousands and thousands of people around the world who are listening to me talk about my life and my desire and dream, this crazy wild dream that'll never happen, of doing podcasting as a living. And all these entrepreneurs who had been very successful start emailing me advice and tell me the income streams I could do. I had people say, Cliff, if you want, here's my cell phone number. Call me anytime. And I actually would take it up and I would call those people and I would have 1.5 hour, 3 hour long conversations. And every single time I did, here's one way that I included you. I included you by telling you what those people were telling me. Mm-hmm. I forwarded those emails to you. So not only were they building in some sort of, layer and foundation of a confidence that would come to follow later, but it was laying a foundation of confidence that this is possible. This is possible. And every time I took that in, I shared it with you, not intentionally,
Right.
but it was just a part of us being one.
Right.
I wanted to
Absolutely.
include you on what's going on in my life, what's going on in my world. These people are telling me, Stephanie, that I can do this. This person for 3 hours told me on the phone, this is 8 ways I can make this amount of money. And so the reality is that was doing nothing to build up my confidence that I could do it. But it was building up, I think, your confidence beyond mine.
I think it was. And here, I mean, if you want to go back a little bit further, Cliff and I got married when I was 18. I had been 18 for exactly 7 days when I said that I do and that I would marry this man and love him and honor him. And about 6 months after that, he decided that he wanted to be a pastor, and I laughed. And I laughed for a long time, not just at him, but at God, because I didn't marry a pastor. That was not what I signed on for, and I fought it and fought it and fought it for a long time. And it made the first year and a half of our marriage very difficult because I wasn't completely invested. And there came a point in that time where you ever had that moment where your dad like sits you down and has a good talk with you, right? Well, God sat me down and he had a good talk with me, and he's like, "Listen up, you stupid little brat."
God said those words to you.
Probably not. That's my paraphrase of what he said to me. It was a long time ago.
You've been programmed to way too much. Oh my goodness.
He seriously, it was just a time where being reminded that okay, so I didn't marry a pastor, but I married Cliff. I married this man, and it didn't matter what his occupation was. I was called to be his wife, to be his support, to honor him, to love him, and to stand by him in whatever he wanted to do.
And to be one with him.
Even if that meant quitting his job with no idea how he was going to make money and feed our 3 kids. And I pushed him off the cliff and jumped off behind him. I mean,
we were in it together.
You
guys, I know I've said this in my story whenever I've shared it. And for those that are unaware of this, Stephanie says, listen, you have to quit your career in insurance. I need my husband
back. I don't
back.
even think I called it a career. I think I called it your job.
Yeah.
It was no longer your career because you were no longer emotionally invested in it. It was just the job that you went to bring home the paycheck and pay the bills. I said, you need to quit your job. I need my husband back. Our kids need their dad back. Little did I know that would take like 3 years. I mean, I really thought it was going to be faster, but,
wow.
But
that's true, my friends. Unfortunately,
I said, we need to be a family unit again. And the way we're going is no longer working for us. This does not work anymore. And so I bullied you into quitting your job.
You did. And you said, and we're debt free at this time, minus our mortgage.
We couldn't have done this had we not been debt free.
That's true.
Please take that into note. Which we have line 5 is show me the money. We couldn't have done this if we were still in debt.
Yeah. So we were debt free minus our mortgage. You said if we need to sell the house and rent for a while, that's okay. That's what we'll do.
If I have to get a job, that's what I'll do.
Yep. You were a stay-at-home mom at this time. We had 3 young kids. And you said, if I have to go out and get a job to help pay the bills, then I will do that. I mean, it blew my mind how much you were involved in this. And so the one thing that if I look back, a lot of people ask me, they say, Cliff, if you could go back and do everything over, you had your option to do things over again, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently? And I keep telling people, I say, listen, I am who I am today because of the stupid mistakes and the good decisions I've made.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't want to go back and change anything, but that doesn't mean that I don't regret anything. I do regret a little bit the amount of time that I missed with my kids. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm thankful that they're still young enough that I'm able to really can reconnect with them in a deeper way, and things are going extremely well today. But there's a little bit of regret there. But I think it was necessary what I had to do to get here in some ways, and some of it maybe if I would have trusted God a little bit more, maybe I would have found that it wasn't as necessary. But here's the thing: there was that. Where was I going with this?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I would sell the house, quit I'd go to work. That's where you started from.
Yeah, I just lost it.
Okay.
There was the, I
Mistakes.
forgot.
Would you do anything
Would
different?
I do anything different? And the one thing you mentioned, thank you so much. You're awesome. See, this is how we're one, guys.
Thanks.
I can't do any of this stuff without her. Just imagine how great Podcast Answer Man would be if Stephanie was here every week.
It'd go over every week.
Exactly.
We both like to talk.
Yes, we do. So, but the reality is what you said, include your spouse, include your wife in coming to those conferences with you. Now, chances of you getting your wife to listen to the same podcast you're listening to, the same, chances of getting your wife to read all the same books that are, that are compelling and inspirational to you, probably bore her to tears, whatever the case may be. But see if you can't bring her or bring your spouse to these conferences and let them be around the environment of other people who are living a life different from the norm.
Absolutely.
And that leads to the second one that I want to bring up. And again, it's out of order here, Steph, but invest in relationship with other people who have already done it. And we don't have this written
You're
down.
messing with my list of things.
I know. But here, I was thinking about this. I am going to toss this out. We've never discussed this before, but I want to ask, I would like to propose to you and tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think you would have ever told me to leave my career in insurance and pursue, or my job in insurance and pursue podcasting full time if it had not been for Andy and Sarah Rader, who had done it first.
You're very much probably right. It is very still crazy to me to think that the one person other than my husband that God has brought into my life to know me inside and out, to love me anyway, even on my ugly days. And my friends, I have some ugly days, and I'm not talking about my appearance, is on a very similar journey that I'm on. Sarah is my dearest friend. Sarah is my sister. There is no other way around it. And her husband started his own practice. He's a marriage and family therapist. Started his own practice just about a year before we started Ravenscraft Enterprises, I think.
And when we met, we had a very similar thing. He had a career where he was working for somebody else as an employee.
Yep.
And stuff like that. They lived in a house very much similar to ours in the same neighborhood as us. Yep. And then he upped and left his career and started and job and started his own career.
And the funny thing about the very funny thing about this is we first met Andy and Sarah 12 years ago, and there was a small group of us who were we were new moms, and we were trying to get to know people in our church, and we started a play group. And so I was spending time with Sarah, several other ladies and their young kids, and you would always say, I don't get it, like, you guys have nothing in common. I don't understand your friendship because there's nothing there. Well, so some things happened, and we were in different seasons for a time, and I guess about 10 years ago, it's been about 10 years, Sarah and I, she called and asked me if I wanted to go to lunch. We took the kids to a local restaurant that has a play area, and we sat and we talked for hours. We started doing that weekly, and we've been inseparable ever since. And it's like, it's kind of like all of your little gadgets you've bought all along the way. It was that foundation that God was building so that we could be on this similar journey together and have a support for each other.
And the important thing here of this story is to realize that for Stephanie, who has really never had any upbringing of this idea of this entrepreneurial journey.
Nope.
Dad worked for somebody, mom worked for somebody, all of this other stuff, it's employee. And all of a sudden, Stephanie's best friend says, my husband is no longer going to be an employee. He's starting his own business.
He's doing it himself.
And you're in a very, very, very close relationship with her, and you're actually getting to hear her side of the experience of all the fears that she's having, and then thankfully all the
successes. Absolutely.
And here, next thing you know, their home is up for sale. They're building their dream house or whatever, and all this other stuff, and it's like all of these, and so for you, one of the things that helped is you were in a relationship with somebody else who was living out an entrepreneurial journey.
Yes.
And then over time, I was able to introduce you to Dan and Joanne Miller, which, by the way, not technically a conference, but equivalent to you back in March 2011.
Absolutely. See, in that
February.
mind, it was in February. In my mind, that was a vacation. I mean, that was fun. I met some amazing people. We met Dan and Joanne and David and Paula Foster,
Joel and Pay,
and so, I mean, some amazing people on that. That I was able to say, well, they did it, and I was already in. I mean, over my head, so there was no going back. But to see people who did it and they still loved each other and probably loved each other like better or harder. I don't even know. I can't even describe what it was that just instant. I was attracted to them like a moth to a flame. It was.
Yeah. So, and so obviously Andy and Sarah is a relationship that we're very much invested in. Dan and Joanne Miller are wonderful friends of ours, and they inspire us to no end.
Yes.
And absolutely, they're a team. They are one. Dan and Joanne are one.
They are.
And same thing. A lot of people think Dan this, Dan that, but Joanne is so much a part of everything that's going on there. David and Paula Foster, we met them, and just how much. And matter of fact, when they did their talk together on the cruise, they talked about this idea of actually working together, that this is a good thing.
Crazy
now, we had
people.
been working together, but we had never heard that this is a good thing. We'd only experienced that maybe this isn't the best thing.
Our only experience was that working together is not cool.
Yeah.
And so to see someone come up and talk about working together, and it was awesome.
Yeah. And then I introduced you, since you're now listening to podcasts, I introduced you to Michael and Gail's podcast episodes together.
Fantastic.
On This Is Your Life. And you got the opportunity to meet both of them at the Platform Conference. You had met Michael once before, just in passing at the Token Show in Nashville, but you got to meet them on a deeper level, which was great. And so step number 2, invest in relationships with other people who are living out this journey together as a couple, with other couples, with other people. Start doing life together with these other individuals.
Absolutely. When we talked about include her, we totally missed off on a big topic out of that, is that don't force her to do the work that you don't want to do.
Yes.
That's not including her, and will only build resentment.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
a backlog of work that you'll have to catch up on later. Speaking from experience.
Yeah.
Working on it now.
Yeah. There's this thing called a virtual assistant, and it's not your wife.
Right. Right.
Keep your virtual assistants virtual.
Otherwise, your other lives will become virtual.
Yes, indeed.
So, don't force her to do the work that you don't want to do. Not cool.
That's not what we mean by including her.
No.
If those jobs that you don't want to do, unless, there are some spouses that, man, that's what they'd love to do, but only include them in the things that they love to do. And for yourself, only agree to do the things that you love to do, and delegate the rest out to other people who actually love to do those things.
Absolutely.
Although, with that being said, you still do help me with some things that aren't your favorite things to do.
But they got to get done.
So,
there are exceptions. Obviously, there are places where you're just going to find that work has to be done and somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
Like the dishes, which still have yet to learn how to do themselves.
Yeah. Eventually, we'll hire somebody to do that.
I know. Do you realize that they're going to have to live with us with all the dishes that we do? Yeah, that's not going to work.
We could get Rosa from Dallas to come over here.
I'm surprised you didn't bring her home with you.
I know. Rosa was our server at the restaurant in Dallas at the Omni Hotel. She was amazing.
She was.
Anyway.
So sweet.
I miss her.
I know you do.
Anyway.
I know you do. She doesn't put lime in your Diet Coke. Or I don't put lime in your Diet Coke. But so include her and invest in relationships with people who have already done it. Where do you want to go next?
Let's see here. Respect her fear.
Absolutely. Because just because she's scared doesn't mean she doesn't support you. There has to be a respect there. I think that one thing that I loved about the first year and a half that we were actually doing this full time is that we were never, like when I was down, you were up. And when I was up, you were down. We were never both down at the same time.
Yeah.
Emotionally and weighed down with how are we going to pay the bills and how are we going to do this? We were never down at the same time. And I think that is because we each had a pretty healthy respect for the other one's scared to death, tears flowing down the face. It really hurts my hand to sign this check. Like, the money is the money going to be there? Where is it coming from? You know, we really had a very good respect for each other's fear.
Yeah. And that's something that, you know, how did we overcome the fear? I mean,
I don't know that we overcame it. I think we just wrote it out, and it became, I think the year of fear just naturally flew into the year of provision. And it was, I don't know that we necessarily overcame it, as that we accepted it as
a reality
of the circumstance that we were in. And I still remember the first time we wrote ourselves a paycheck, and neither of us cried, and we laughed. And we'd laugh together. And I think if you want to have a moment of overcoming the fear, it would have been that moment.
Yeah.
It would have been that moment when we wrote a paycheck that was, the business had already paid all of its own bills, had enough to write our paycheck and pay the taxes on that paycheck, which I think is some people don't really understand how much taxes come with writing yourself a paycheck. But so we paid the business bills, we wrote our paycheck, we had enough money to cover the taxes, and the paycheck was enough money to cover all of our personal expenses. And we laughed out loud. That was that moment when we overcome the fear and we just said, you know what? God is good.
Yeah.
I think that might have been the moment I became not scared anymore too. Like, there's...
Yeah, and the funny thing is I want to say this, just for me, the fear is still there from time to time.
I know.
As I consider myself to be the one responsible for providing for the family, as sexist as some people may think that is, I still feel that way. And so I do still sometimes, even with as much money as we make now, I'm thinking, well, is it going to go?
It could go away anytime.
Exactly. This isn't like, show up for X number of hours during each day of the week, and then at the end of the week, regardless of what your performance is, you get a paycheck. This isn't that kind of lifestyle. It's right. When you perform and you get paid, you don't perform, you don't get paid.
Right.
And there's a little bit more to it than that. But the one thing is that, there's no ceiling on my income like there was before.
Right.
And I can make as much money as I want to make.
Exactly.
Or I can make as little as money as I want to make. So anyway, so respecting their fear. Definitely understand that it's real, and if you don't have it because you've been built up and confident as a result of all the inspiration and stuff, the reality is that fear is still there for your spouse. And
Absolutely.
So keep that in mind and respect it and empathize with it. Mm-hmm. All right. The next one is show me the money.
Show me the money. Don't be like Cliff.
All right.
Don't start without any idea of how you're going to make some money. I mean, have like a little inkling of money. It was funny because we were trying to, when we were putting this together, which I'm pretty sure we did like in the car, and I can tell because the handwriting is so sloppy. You were driving while I was writing this. And you said, well, there's got to be one more. What else is there? What else is there? I say, buy her a Honda Pilot. This year was the year that my dream came true, and we bought our brand new Honda Pilot. And so that in that came, show me the money, show me the plan. There has to be a way to make money. You can't just jump into, and I think that also ties into the fear a lot.
Yeah.
You can't just, really, we didn't do it responsibly when we jumped in with no plan of how to make money at all. I mean, we still don't have a definite
we don't have a
business plan. We still don't have, we have an idea of where we want to go, but it's not written down anywhere. I mean, it's not grafted out in a 5-year plan or something.
It's on a whiteboard, and then it makes it into a list of goals.
Right. And then it gets filed in the computer. Whether it gets looked at by Cliff again or not,
does.
I don't know. But I think that, show me the plan. Show me how we're going to make money. How are you going to do this? What is your idea of how this is going to work?
Yeah.
And then listen to her ideas or their ideas and how they think you can do this. And I said this to somebody this weekend, I call it the weekend, although we were gone for like 5 days, and there was a weekend in there somewhere.
Our trip to Dallas.
While we were in Dallas, I know I said to someone, we were talking about a certain thing in the business that happened that they knew about, and he said, well, I told him to talk to you. And I said, well, he did. And I said, that's a no-brainer. Those were my exact words on this particular topic. That's a no-brainer. And the great thing about Cliff and I in the way that we do our business is that he is a ponderer. He will ponder on something forever and ever and ever. He will think about it and go over and over. And I react on my gut. It is my first instinct. It's not always right, but sometimes it is. And so we balance each other in that way. So I definitely think that having your spouse's insight, because I don't know if all marriages are complete opposites like you and I, but I think a good portion of them are, that your spouse is going to react in a completely different way than you would, or
give you a different
perspective. Right.
So absolutely. And the other things that I did, I do recall, as we were doing this as a hobby, some money was coming in. There was this crazy different, little things that we did with some advertising, and, we saw, a couple $1,000s come in here and there. And then, we had an arrangement with TalkShoe. They had some VC money, and they were paying people for downloads and bringing people to their service. And that was bringing in some significant income, which got cut off abruptly, but, it came and it went. And I started to do some webinars, and people were paying me here and paying me there. And I had the inkling of ideas of what we could do. And I shared them with you. And turned out one of the things that I thought is we were going to create more content, and we were going to have more advertisers. We're going to sign up with a network. We almost signed with a network. And we had the final contract all negotiated. And the spirit within me just said, no, this isn't the right thing to do. And at the last moment, I sent him an email and said, listen, I can't sign this. I can't explain to you why, but I've determined that going independent and not
wife's
joining
gut said no.
This isn't the right thing.
It's not right.
And that company went bankrupt less than a year later.
Right.
So we made some difficult decisions. So while we had some ideas of where the money might come from, we really didn't know. It was all uncharted territory, and it was and for us, that's why it was important that we were debt free minus our mortgage. Also, we did have access to my pension. The worst thing you could ever do is take money out of your pension. We had access to that.
We've done it twice.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. But only once during this journey. During this journey. But the reality is that it was tough to do that. But every time there was some kind of positive influx of cash, anytime this hobby was generating some income, I showed that with you. I shared it and reported on it. And if there was something bad that happened, I let you know that as well. And so when you went into this, you already had a realistic understanding of what we've been able to achieve with me just doing this part-time.
Right.
Man, if I had my really productive hours from 9 to 5, imagine what I could do with this. And there was the reality of all the other things the other people had shared. So certainly show me the money. The thing is being debt-free. The reality is I would say, man, if you can become debt-free and you got a well-paying job, build something on the side and get debt-free first.
Absolutely.
There are some people, and I've heard Dan Miller say this, and I would just recommend that you actually refer to Dan Miller's 48 Days to the Work You Love podcast. But on his podcast, I've heard him say, it's like sometimes it's like the quickest way to become debt-free is to actually make more money. And sometimes you're just going to downright be more successful doing a job that you find more fulfilling than actually trying to make more money at a job you hate. Absolutely. And now, with that being said, there's a whole lot of stuff that goes into that, and my recommendation is I've never left a full-time career and pursued something like this as a full-time career with having debt.
Right.
And so I can't imagine. I mean, it was so difficult that first year without having any debt.
Right.
That I can't even begin to imagine what it would be like if I did. And so we're not giving you any advice on what you should or should not do there. What we are doing, though, is telling you to show your wife the money. Show your spouse the money. Show them that there is a track record that this is already generating X amount of dollars. And if I was able to spend this amount of time additional, and by the way, and be real, and maybe you need to actually come to terms. If you think that, it's like, gosh, if I could just do this during the day, that's all it's going to take. Because it's not just bringing in the same amount of money, but like Stephanie says, 30 to 40% taxes on top of that. You've got to make more money than what you're making now. Right. 40% more than what you're making now to make ends meet.
Absolutely.
And so it's not just, giving up that 9-to-5 job and then 9 to 5 is what you're going to do. And that's one thing I've seen entrepreneurs or these people trying to do. They think, I can just work 8 hours a day and build a business. I don't know anybody that's done it.
Neither do I.
So, show them the money.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
and stuff like that. So anyway, show them the money. The last thing, the fifth, what are the 5 tips that we've shared so far?
Okay. So include your spouse, invest in a relationship with others who have already gone before you, who have already jumped in and done it. Respect her fear or their fear. Respect their fear. Show me the money. And the last one, and the most important, is to pray together, is prayer. Ask her to pray for you. You pray for her, pray together about the business. Because as you grow closer to what God's will is for your life, you will inevitably grow closer together. There is no other way. You are in a marriage, you are either working towards oneness or you are working towards isolation. And the only way to fight off isolation, well, not the only way, but the most important way to fight off isolation is to pray together. Yeah,
faith is a very big issue for Stephanie and I. It is a very big part of our lives. And we do believe that as each of us individually make a commitment to grow closer to God, we inevitably will ultimately grow closer to one another. And that's how we become one. And so it's not... So I'm going to suggest to you, we drew you in under 5 tips how to get your spouse on board with your entrepreneurial journey. And for those of you who are people who are members of, people of faith, I want to suggest to you that it's not about getting your spouse on board with you. It's about both of you getting on board with what God has designed and desires for you.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
That's it.
That is it. Stephanie, we have recorded the longest Podcast Answer Man episode
You're welcome.
in history.
That's how I do things.
I love you, and I just want to say that in front of everyone, I am so thankful for including yourself in what I'm doing. I thank you for your prayer, for your support. Thank you for believing in me before I believed in myself. And thank you for pushing me out the door and making me do this.
You're welcome.
And your faith. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I've said many times, this is the, it's the biggest step of faith I've taken in my life, up to that point, and probably since. I think maybe God knew I needed a break for a minute. But you're welcome.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
And Stephanie will be at New Media Expo.
I will.
In January. So come see, I'm including her in this conference. And if you want to come meet Stephanie, the great woman behind all the stuff that I've been able to accomplish, I could not have done it without her. I encourage you to come to New Media Expo in January. to meet her. She will actually be sitting in on 2 different sessions. How to grow a loyal fan base and community around your podcast. And what's the other one that you're on?
It's about fan podcasting.
Oh, yeah.
Podcasting Yep. I don't know the title of it. I'm sorry. I'm really bad at this stuff.
It's how to create a successful fan podcast around your favorite TV show, movie, or book series.
Yeah, and when I say I'm really bad at this stuff, I mean remembering the titles of these really long. Like I would choose a title much shorter. Like totally, you can tell that these titles were chosen by men. No offense to the men that I'm speaking with on these panels, but yeah, I'd go for something much more condensed. But I would just want to take this. I would just say I love you and thank you for an amazing life, an amazing journey that we're on together, and my Honda Pilot
and my new house. Awesome.
Yes.
And I want to say thank you to some pretty special people, the folks behind RightyWilliams.com and StartupPodcast.net. Those 2 individuals who have used my Bluehost affiliate link for signing up for the Bluehost account. And of course, I get a very generous commission when you do that. If you want my thoughts on hosting for your podcast and your media files, head over to podcastanswerman.com/hosting for more details. And also, my final podcasting A to Z online training course starts this coming Monday.
Final of the year.
Final of the one of 2013. Thank you. See, I need her. She needs to be here every week. Anyway, final one of the year is coming up this Monday, November 18th. There's still time, even if you hear this within the first week of the course. Go to podcastingatoz.com. Until next time, everyone, I encourage you to take everything you do in your life to the next level.
Helping you to get the thing you do to the next level.
Podcast Answer Man.